Well, that was some ending. I would say the Grand Prix itself was as dull as dishwater until the final stops when Max had a bad stop. I think it was the left rear was a little bit slow, and then he had to be held for Norris. Norris comes out behind him, and Norris at that point, like we've seen so many times, the McLaren is so much quicker at the end of the race. And then he's behind him. Then we have the accident. This is really just going to be a quick breakdown of it and my thoughts on it. So it's going to be a bit of a chatty video. The race has only just finished, so I'm just trying to get these thoughts out there. So I'll say this thing first. Norris dived Max quite a few times. It felt like maybe when the move wasn't really on, especially the one that I'm remembering in my head. I can't remember precisely what lap it was, but he locks up. Max can't turn into the corner. Lando was getting a bit desperate, I think, to get past Max. That being said, Max was moving multiple times under braking. He did that a few times. He also moved reactively, which you're not meant to do. He would look, see Lando moving right, then he would move right. You're not meant to do that because it's dangerous, especially at high speed. But he did do that a few times. Lando talked about it on the radio. And then ultimately, they came together in a bit of a silly incident, really. Lando has gone around the outside down into turn 3. He's actually going in a straight line, just to be clear. Max has slightly moved across. They've made contact, wheel rim to wheel rim. It's actually caused a puncture for both drivers. Even after that, though, Max is driving with a puncture, and he's still blocking Lando on the track, which is it's a bit petulant, to be honest. These guys know each other very well. They've been, good friends. So I hope that dynamic doesn't change. We saw what happened with, Rosberg and Hamilton. They were such good friends, and then racing wheel to wheel for a long time really changed that. And I hope that, doesn't happen. So Max was given a 10-second penalty. It didn't matter, didn't change his race at all, because he ended up there in 5th, and he had more than enough gap to the next car. So he's not really, well, I suppose he's been penalised in the sense that he's not got the win, but he's not got second place. Lando eventually retired the car, so he's lost out big time. The stewards determined that it was Max's fault. They actually gave him a 10-second penalty for it. Is that fair? Do you think that's fair? I mean, I think it's fair. The reason I think it's fair is because Max, we saw this in 2021, Max does not give up on a position. He just refuses to yield. Now, that's a good quality, and it's a bad quality. It's good because he will fight tooth and nail to keep a position, and he's such an intelligent driver. And the reason I bring up his intelligence is because these moves that he's making are not by accident. He knows what he's doing. He's an intelligent guy and an incredible racer. But he will sometimes, we saw this in 2021, he simply won't take a corner and go so deep into a corner that the guy around the outside simply can't get past. He was moving under braking. He was reacting to Lando's moves. It's a little bit too much. Now, we haven't really seen this for the past couple of years because he hasn't had anyone challenging him. It's not his fault. But now we're seeing Lando really in the McLarens giving him a little bit more pressure. We're just seeing this sort of desperate defending from Max again, where it's just a little bit over the edge. And ultimately, if two guys are driving in that way against each other, they're going to come together at some point. This has actually happened fairly early on in this fight, really, because McLaren have only really been in this position to fight for wins since probably Miami. So I'm kind of surprised it hasn't happened sooner. But it might happen again. Silverstone was a good track for McLaren last year, and they do better in the higher speed circuits. Silverstone, obviously, incredibly high speed. We don't know how Red Bull will perform there, but I'm expecting them to be pretty strong as well. I think the race is going to be between Max and Lando in Silverstone also. Will this, will this rear its head again? I'll say that I don't think Lando should have been diving into turn 3 anyway. I think there was a couple of times he was out of control going into that turn, and he'll know that Max is just going to get DRS back on him down into turn 4. So it's always going to be difficult to hold that position if you get past into turn 3. It's a very tricky situation in Austria with the triple DRS zones. Ultimately, the person that benefited from this, though, was George Russell. Now, George was like 13 seconds away from the leaders. I think he was about 13 seconds, 12, 13 seconds off Lando. And George had a good race, don't get me wrong. It's not a criticism, but the pace of the Mercedes wasn't really there because he was 5, 6 tenths slower than Norris and Verstappen pretty much every lap. The pace of the Mercedes wasn't there to compete for the win. Lewis supposedly had floor damage from early on in the race, which is why his pace wasn't as strong. He started off very good, but then the pace drifted off really, and he struggled. He had his 5-second penalty as well. Supposedly floor damage for him, which is why that happened. But George was there and thereabouts. He was in third, and I think he was going to get third comfortably. I don't think under normal situations anyone would have challenged him, although Piastri did get close at the end. So he was, he was going to get third, and he's benefited massively from those two coming together. You got to be in the right place at the right time. He won't care one bit how he's got the win. He's got the win. But Mercedes will obviously want to be getting wins on pure pace rather than, benefiting from others, coming together. This is, I think, going to be something we're going to see now going forward. Max and Lando going toe-to-toe. I'm looking forward to it. But we're already seeing it's getting a little bit edgy with both drivers. Lando was diving a little bit, seeming maybe a little bit desperate. Max defending a little bit desperate. It's going to boil over at some point, and maybe it already has. So it was a boring race right up until the end, and then it got spicy. Let's hope that Silverstone has the same amount of spice next weekend. Thanks for watching my ramblings. If you do enjoy the videos that I've been putting out over the past 6 months, then please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one, which will be a preview to the Silverstone Grand Prix coming out in a few days. I'll see you then.